Mentor, leader, protector. All titles fit for Taki, the commander of the 7th Airborne Squadron and close friend to Eve. Taki's purpose revolves around serving the story's main protagonist. During the events of Stellar Blade, Taki guides Eve through her first real-world combat encounter. In the lead-up to the end of Stellar Blade's first act, Taki's turn into an Alpha Naytiba is a ploy used by Stellar Blade's antagonist, Raven, to destabilize Eve's emotional state. The first act's culminating event, the death of Taki, serves as a catalyst pushing Eve toward her continued pursuit of revenge, an eventual accomplishment realized upon incapacitating the monster that took Taki from her. Raven's now broken body frame, the last literal barrier for Eve, disregarded and left in the desert. This event's finality serves as the last obstacle in Eve's path that she must clear. Now, with sound mind, after the defeat of Raven and justice for Taki, Eve is able to enter the nest, to retrieve the truth and complete the Eve protocol. In summation, Taki's existence and death are meant to propel Eve's story. However, Taki is a dynamic character who grows and has a compelling arc all her own. This is the character profile of Stellar Blade's Taki. In the colony, they say that her speed in the combat simulations was unmatched, similar to a tachyon particle's ability to travel faster than light, earning her the name Taki. Her prowess in the colony's battle simulations resulted in her becoming a highly decorated soldier, and giving her the right to lead the 7th Airborne Squadron. In addition to her speed, Taki was outfitted with her tachyon blade. Its great length always gave her tactical advantage over others in PvP training simulations, never allowing any of her comrades to land a killing blow without becoming vulnerable themselves. The blade's particle buildup could be discharged, so that Taki could fire off rings of energy at foes. With all of Taki's abilities constantly on display in the training simulations, Heaven's royalty and the other angels of her squadron felt their upcoming mission couldn't have been in safer hands. But Taki's greatest strength was something she didn't put on display for others to see. It wasn't her ability with her sword or her incredible physical speed. Instead, it was her connection to and mentorship of Eve. Taki knew the 7th Wave's success was dependent on the completion of the Eve protocol, and although this required her to train and mentor the designated Eve of the 7th Airborne Squadron, the one that would be able to bring about the completion of the Eve protocol, Taki eventually came to know this Eve as her own Eve, the one she protects and guides. Taki knew that if she were to meet her end during the campaign against the Naytiba, she wanted to be in the arms of her close sister, the one she called My Eve. Little did Taki know, she would find her wish true in the final moments of her death. They walked together, Taki and Eve, down the corridor of Squadron 7's module in the colony towards the battle simulation room for their scheduled run. They looked out of the bay windows into the abyss of stars. Taki knew Eve was going to ask something, not about the listed Naytiba or battle tactics of their upcoming simulation, but about what she saw outside the window. The two had spent many cycles together training for their eventual deployment to Earth, and this is what Taki grew to love about Eve, her wonder of the universe and what else was out there, outside of the colony. Taki, what do you think is out there? Do you think others are amongst the stars? Couldn't we help whoever else exists out there? We could save Earth from the Naytiba first, then help all the others. Mother Sphere taught us there is an ocean of countless stars. Wouldn't it make sense for us to be among them with our comrades, helping the entire universe? Taki nodded, as they stopped just outside their training simulation room. Taki wondered where Eve came up with these thoughts. Eve's empathy and care of others were such defining aspects of who she was. Eve told her once they just permeated in her brain, but could never recall an origin point. Taki wrote this off as just Eve's personality, something that at times she loved to respond to, but today was different. There was an urgency to this day, to this last moment she had with Eve. It was different. Mother Sphere had made it so. Taki opened one of the doors to the training simulation platforms so that Eve could walk through first. We have to practice again today, Eve. I need you ready when we land so you'll know how to access your beta skills. You won't be able to use them here in the battle simulations with the absence of real Naytiba blood. But after your blood edge strikes its first Naytiba down on Earth and absorbs its blood, your beta core will siphon the blood and turn it into beta energy. You'll be able to activate and use your beta skills, the first airborne squad member to do so. I need to make sure you're ready to handle that amount of energy. That amount of power you'll wield in your blood edge is unprecedented. No other squad member has ever had these skills. That's why they are beta skills. You are the first Mother Sphere has blessed these skills upon. But Mother Sphere told me that you, Eve, are special. Never will a squad member be so fast, she told me. She even gave you a divine blessing on the leg of your nanosuit. Taki paused and looked up at her friend, her sister, and gave her a smile. So if that's the case, come show me. Taki always tried to motivate Eve with love, cavalry, and friendship, but never pushed her or tried to control her. Eve was an individual that loved others, cared for them. Although she was an incredible warrior all her own, Taki knew Eve was different from her and the rest of the airborne squad members. Taki's own memories of her military career were always a bit foggy. Taki felt a driving force to be strong, determined, and to lead others, but she couldn't remember the details of her past, not even her own parents or her childhood. She just knew that they were there. Her memory of life before the military, people she knew, and her family felt almost like a general-purpose memory that took up a little compartment of her brain that was always there but closed off, unable to be accessed. Now that she was here in the colony and under the guidance of Mother Sphere, she only had one main driving force and concern: their eventual dive to Earth that would begin once the 7th Airborne Protocol was initiated. She did have other thoughts, but whenever she tried to recall her past, it felt as if she were submerged under a deep, dark ocean, and thoughts of the mission always seemed to rise to the top, like bubbles exhaled from her submerged body frame. Being reminded of the mission any time her thoughts wandered hardened her. Constant thoughts of the mission afforded her the focus and drive to be the leader of her squadron. But she knew Eve was different. She always asked Taki questions. She was curious. Taki didn't understand this way about Eve at first, but after their time together, she saw this as something that made Eve special. Eve was inquisitive about life and helping others, while Taki herself was a student of war. She studied it and came to learn its hardships. She even understood that no matter how much the frequency or duration of their simulations amassed, they were still only simulations. Nothing could replicate real war on the battlefield. She also knew war would always result in unforeseen circumstances, spontaneous events that required adaptability and survival skills. Therefore, Taki walked a fine line of nurturing and caring for her friend Eve, but also preparing her through rigid and demanding training sessions. Taki's knowledge she gained through the study of war made answering Eve's questions routine. They became a natural part of their training sessions together. Eve found a mentor in Taki through the avenue of answers to her constant flow of questions. But Taki found something more valuable from Eve. In the battle simulations between the various teams of the 7th Airborne Squadron and the listed Naytiba, Eve was always quick to help her squadmates. Rushing to their defense with her blood edge and coming to the aid of an overwhelmed squadmate were not only frequent actions taken by Eve, but Taki noticed them as natural to her. It made up Eve's identity. This humanity was on display even after the termination of a simulation, as Eve would always check over her listed team members and ensure they had the ability to properly recover. Eve had the power to devastate a Naytiba force. She was strong and capable in battle, albeit still in need of training and upkeep in Taki's eyes. But to Taki, Eve was a warrior because she had to be. She was selected by Mother Sphere and bestowed the ability to use beta skills, Mother Sphere's most recent blessing for the airborne squad, unique amongst all of her squad members due to her being the one that would carry out the Eve protocol. But this was not Eve's nature. Taki saw Eve as kind, loving, and caring. To Taki, Eve was unique because of how she treated others, how she cared about them all. And when Eve would come to check on her, Taki, at the end of a battle simulation, Taki felt respite from the constant drive and focus on the mission. Her heart felt warmth with Eve, and because of this, because of Eve's almost opposite nature to a battle-hardened warrior, Taki came to care deeply for her. None of the others are joining us today, Eve. PvP, no listed Naytiba simulations. As they battled in the simulation, Taki didn't speak. Her mind thought about her friend. Then she thought about what Mother Sphere told her earlier in the cycle of that day. Through the blood edge, Eve will be able to use the withdrawn energy from Naytiba blood and convert it into beta skill attacks. But she needs training. I have predicted outcomes where Eve does not learn to master her skill set, and the beta energy overloads her body frame. In these outcomes, Eve would die. Taki, this outcome cannot come to pass. You must train her. Get her ready to use her beta skills. Never have I bestowed such gifts to one specific squad member before, not even another Eve. Recall the blessing printed upon her leg. For that eventuality to come true, for her not to die, Eve must iterate upon her speed. She must get faster. Today will be your last training session. No other squad member is as fast as you, Taki. Train her. Make her truly faster than lightning. I activate the 7th Airborne Protocol by the end of the cycle today. Taki, one last thing. Please lean forward. Taki remembered the spark she felt in her brain. She saw a ping pulse on her heads-up display. Taki, I think you know who this represents. I hope this illustrates the importance she serves this squadron. May you never leave her side on the battlefield. Her survival, her success of the Eve Protocol is our future. Taki, you continue to be a great leader. Thank you, and farewell. Taki snapped back to where she was. Her blade clashed with Eve. The echo of their blades permeated throughout the grounds of the simulation. The vibration of the tachyon blade and the blood edge shook her body. What a gift that blade is to Eve. But she doesn't know. What if it does kill her? No, I won't let that happen. The thought of losing Eve brought Taki's own thoughts down a well of doom. What if I die? Every other squad before us failed. Are the Naytiba that powerful? Are the monsters who stole our planet truly unbeatable? No, I don't believe that. This time will be different. We will stand victorious because this time we have Eve. Taki was surprised at her lack of focus. Twice now in this simulation her thoughts wandered, and as Taki regained her focus, the one she cared so much for crouched and leapt upwards towards her. Blade first, the blood edge's tip flew at her. Taki was impressed, but knew Eve could do better. She had to move faster. Taki would teach Eve a lesson. She dropped her left shoulder to tilt her head back. The few inches of space were all she needed. Taki knew her blood edge's length. Eve should have known as well. Eve's blood edge, held far outstretched in Eve's hand, came up short. Taki easily extended her equipped right hand down towards Eve. Eve's confidence turned to disappointment as she felt the warmth of the tachyon particles of Taki's blade vibrating near her abdomen. Eve looked down and saw the tip of Taki's blade caressed against her green nanosuit. You're slow, Eve. You're still too slow. Taki shut down the simulation. Eve tossed a towel to Taki, and the two caught their breath, wiping away their sweat. She let Eve know about the 7th Airborne Protocol being initiated. Eve didn't react. Taki wasn't sure if her sister was scared or ready. War will be a lot harder on you than I am, Eve replied with a statement about the Naytiba. Taki's mind continued to race. She thought about the possibility of losing Eve, about death. She replied, "From the cradle to the grave, for the airborne squad." As the words came out of her mouth, Taki immediately regretted it. The last thing Eve needed was doubt. Her job was to teach her, to guide her into becoming capable of using her eventual beta skills once on Earth. Why did I say that? Taki thought. Their resulting conversation pivoted towards death, and Eve's curiosity took over. What happens if we fail? What happens if we die? The full truth of the colony extinction, Mother Sphere's horrific actions against her own race of Andro-Eidos humans, never reached the colony. The colony's citizens were under the impression the network was inaccessible on Earth due to the ravaging Naytiba, not the destruction of the colony extinction. Eve had doubts if their memories would be able to return to the colony, to Mother Sphere, if they were not able to access the network while on Earth. Taki was always able to answer the questions that Eve asked her. She was always able to satisfy Eve's curiosity and quell any shred of doubt. But not these questions. She cared for Eve. She had developed an urge to protect her. But these questions made her think of the true possibility of dying. What if what Mother Sphere said, that Eve dies, comes to pass? Has Mother Sphere seen this eventual outcome for all of us? For me? Even if my memories make it back to Mother Sphere, what will I truly be then? She posed this question to Eve while looking out at the universe of stars. No, she had to help her Eve. She had to respond with confidence. Taki told Eve that this time was different. They would reclaim Earth. But here is where she wanted to tell Eve her truth. Their time together, the trust and friendship they built was something meaningful to Taki. And this was going to be their final moment together. Their final moment of quiet before the storm. I must tell her how I feel, Taki thought. I won't get another shot at this. It's important Eve knows this. I want her to know what she means to me. Eve, if fate brings my death, I want to meet my end in your arms. Eve appeared distraught. Taki thought how it would be. Letting go in Eve's embrace and not the embrace of Mother Sphere. A final embrace from her friend. Her sister who she grew to love. The one she came to mentor and care for came to mean so much more. Even more than returning to Mother Sphere. Maybe it would be okay not to return to Mother Sphere upon my death, she thought. Mother Sphere's embrace might leave me a shell of my former self, archived data that may not ever again be accessed. Maybe it's okay for my memories to not live on forever. She thought of the questions Eve always seemed to ask about the stars and the vastness of the universe. Maybe it would be okay to let go, to be among the stars. Taki, Eve, and their comrades didn't have long. The 7th Airborne Protocol was underway. The opening moments of Stellar Blade transpire and Taki emerges from her pod. She looks around at the LZ. This is not right, she thought. She was several clicks away from the rendezvous point, and she could see only a handful of her squadmates active outside their pods. Has this really happened? Nothing in their intel mentioned the Naytiba's ability to penetrate the fleet's shields like that. Taki had not even heard of Protocol B-32. Their individual pods were supposed to be ejected within Earth's atmosphere, not above orbit in space. Taki knew she had to find Eve. She remembered her meeting with Mother Sphere. The dot on her HUD pinged and she flew towards it, earning her namesake Taki. She finds her sister and wastes no time ripping the metal pod door off like a thin piece of paper and flinging it aside. She had found her Eve. The events of Stellar Blade continue. Taki guides Eve up the battlefield and the two take on a brute Naytiba. Although not an alpha, Taki recognizes it as a formidable opponent eventually overcome by their dual strike attack, perfected many cycles ago in the training simulations of the colony. Taki realizes the damage to Eve's body frame is severe and she won't be able to heal her with simple consumables. She needs the stockpiles found in previous airborne squad camps. However, this line of thought is quickly interrupted by something Taki hears. The eerie sound is not like anything she's heard in the colony. Taki's training, her education and study of war, told her a foreign sound must mean an approaching enemy. She honed in on the sound and spotted a mass of black feathers surging towards her. Acting as a guardian to Eve, she pushes her sister out of harm's way and takes the impact of the descending black mass. The energy wave rocks her. Taki quickly identifies it as an alpha and extends her tachyon blade. The creature is massive. It stood a full meter taller than Taki. If Eve were at full strength, perhaps they could take it together. But she knew her sister was incapacitated. The creature begins to circle her, so Taki counters. Why is it pausing? Taki thought. Oh no. Eve. It wants Eve. The rest was a blur. She felt her arm severed. The pain was manageable. Her thoughts were still only with Eve. Then she felt another pain. It rivaled what she felt in her arm just moments before. Her abdomen screamed out in pain. The creature's sickle-like arm had fully impaled her. She felt the creature's strength. Its lean and fibrous muscles easily lifted Taki into the air. With her last bit of strength, she turned to the one she was supposed to protect. The one that Mother Sphere told her was all that matters. The one she cared for, her sister, and let out.
Eve! Get out of here!
Taki woke up in what she recognized as a water processing plant. Taki studied District 3 copiously before her dive to Earth. She knew the LZ and its surrounding areas, even the underground locations like the one she found herself in now. Her arm and abdomen still carried a ravaging pain. She tried to pull her body up to stand, but quickly realized she was strung up. She looked down and saw she was 20 meters up, hanging from one of the gears of the giant water processor. After Taki got her bearings, her thoughts immediately went to Eve. Taki realized she must have blacked out after she was impaled. Her physical pain pulsated through her body, but she hurt more not knowing Eve's whereabouts. She could no longer access Eve's location. Her body frame was severely damaged, and her body core had lost some of its functioning. Taki's thoughts pained her. She was the airborne squad's leader. She was her leader. She failed Mother Sphere and Eve. Just as quickly as her thoughts consumed her mind, the underground facility filled with an echoing screech. Taki heard several loud rushes of wind coming from the staircase at the far end of the facility. Taki's field of view was filled with a swarm of black feathers as the black-winged creature emerged and flew toward her. The creature arrived in front of Taki, levitating as it flapped its enormous wings to stay at Taki's eye level. Taki pulled away as best she could, but she was bound tightly. She couldn't move. Taki noticed a red glow emanating from one of the creature's hands. It lifted its hands higher. Taki saw it was a red orb encased in a black hexagonal mesh. To Taki's surprise, the Alpha spoke. "This will bring her to you. You cared for her. Let's see if she cares for you too." "Stop it! No! What are you doing to me? Mother Sphere, save me!" "Mother Sphere, save you? Why would she save such a useless weapon? But me, on the other hand, I'll save you. Mother Sphere created you, and I will upgrade you. But let's see what happens to you. When he turned me, I wanted it. I doubt you want this, don't you? I doubt you'll be able to help the urge. I unraveled the truth myself, and he gave me the push I needed to become what I am. But you, still a pawn of Mother Sphere, loyal to her false lie, this Alpha Core will break you, turn your will against you, and attack the very things you think you are saving." An Alpha Core, Taki thought. This creature is mad. Why does it speak of Mother Sphere like that? Why does it say Mother Sphere created me? Who is this he it refers to? What does it mean I'm going to attack the thing I think I'm saving? The creature continued slowly flapping its massive wings. It spoke out again, this time full of something Taki could only identify as jealousy. He chose her. Well then, let's see what he thinks of her after she loses everything that mattered to her. You gave your life to protect her. Let's see what happens to her when she loses the last comrade she has. I will make her collapse and show him that she is nothing. Taki felt the creature thrust the Alpha Core into her open wound in her abdomen. She felt an immediate lurch. All of her energy and even the thoughts of her mind descended into her abdomen toward the Alpha Core. Everything was being drained from her body as if a giant leech was sucking all of her existence inward, like an implosion happening inside of her body. Taki drifted in and out of consciousness. Her mind, eyes, her body, it felt like she drifted down a black river of hatred. She felt hatred towards humans. It was like a thirst she needed to quench. Her mind drowned, not of water, but a steady stream of anger and resentment toward humans. But not one human, all of humanity. Every last human on Earth. She needed to kill them all. But Taki was able to fight it. She was a soldier, the strongest soldier, the commander of the 7th Airborne Squadron. She fought the urge and the feeling of being pulled under. She screamed out. But was she screaming? She didn't know. All of her thoughts and efforts exhaled from her body. Help me! No. Taki knew there was no coming back. This final moment of clarity told her whatever the creature did to her was something irreversible. This is the last moment of clarity I'll get. That urge to kill, to be someone I am not, is going to return. I can feel that hostility rising. I won't get another chance at this. Similar to the urge she felt while standing with Eve after the battle simulation on the colony, of telling Eve how she really felt, that she wanted to be in her arms when death called, she called out to Eve again. Taki took this moment of desperation and opened the Airborne Squadron communication channel and called out to her sister. Kill me. Taki's next waking moment was that of a nightmare. In front of her stood her comrade, her sister, her Eve. Taki recognized her. She was in another short moment of clarity. Taki could barely see her sister. Why did she look like that? Taki thought. Eve held her blood edge in a combat-ready stance. Taki could feel her body moving, but then the feelings of hostility came back. Kill. She needed to kill humans, all of them, all of humanity, and here in front of Taki presented one to kill. She could kill this human, then the rest. Taki felt her body lurch forward. Her tachyon blade swung outward. It slashed at Eve. She couldn't control her body. Then she fell deep into the black water again. Kill! I will kill Eve. I will kill this human. Taki was fully in Alpha now. Eve did what she had to. She broke Taki more and more until Taki's Naytiba-powered ability to instantaneously evolve her body sprouted a wing, then later another out of the open wound of her arm. But Eve was finally able to incapacitate Taki. She sliced off the Naytiba wing and ripped off the other. Taki felt a final relief of Eve's hand grasp around the infectious alpha core within her and rip it from her body. Then she heard her sister's voice.
It's over.
Yes.
Eve. The subjugation is being lifted.
With the control the Alpha Core had over Taki gone, she was able to make her return, but death began to claim her. However, this realization was not met with any fear, as Taki found herself in the one place that could have provided her comfort and love in a moment of death. She looked up at her sister. She knew this was her final moment with Eve. Taki spoke.
I've been waiting for this moment.
Now, you can rest.
Yes. My Eve. Thanks for freeing me. I'll be floating among the stars to space.
Taki!
Thank you so much for joining me on this one. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this Stellar Blade profile, or anything else you want to discuss. I'll be jumping down into the comments to keep up the discussion with you all there. As always, I truly appreciate your time. See you on the next one, and may your memories live on forever.